Alright, so apparently women think it's hot when you can't fold a fitted sheet. No, I'm not making this up, and no, I haven't lost my mind. But before you go throwing your laundry skills out the window, let me tell you about my friend Dave, who somehow pulls more tail than a kindergarten class playing with puppies, and this guy couldn't coordinate his socks if his life depended on it. Dave literally showed up to a wedding wearing 2 different shoes, and when someone pointed it out, he just shrugged and said, "Well, at least they're both black." The woman sitting next to me actually sighed and whispered, "That's so attractive." What the hell, right? Meanwhile, I'm over here with my color-coordinated outfit looking like I stepped out of a men's magazine, and I'm going home alone to eat cereal for dinner. Turns out, women's brains are wired like some kind of backwards GPS system where all the logical routes are closed for construction. After watching guys like Dave succeed, while perfectly put-together men strike out harder than a little league team, I decided to figure out what kind of psychological voodoo was happening here. So I spent way too much time talking to women about this stuff, and what I discovered will make you question everything you thought you knew about attraction. These 5 traits are so ridiculous that if someone told me about them 5 years ago, I would have recommended therapy. But here we are, living in a world where being bad at simple tasks apparently makes panties drop. Number 1. Being hilariously incompetent at basic life skills. Women absolutely lose their minds when you're confidently terrible at something that should be simple. I'm talking about burning water, getting lost in your own neighborhood, or somehow managing to put your shirt on backwards and not noticing until someone points it out 3 hours later. This sounds completely insane, but there's actual science behind why this works. When women see a guy who's secure enough to be publicly incompetent without having a meltdown, their attraction centers light up like a slot machine hitting jackpot. It signals that you're emotionally stable and not one of those guys who punches walls when the Wi-Fi goes down. Think about it from their perspective. Most women have dealt with men who lose their absolute minds over minor inconveniences. The guy who screams at his GPS, throws tantrums when technology doesn't work, or gets genuinely angry when he can't open a jar of pickles. So when they meet a man who can't figure out how to work a can opener and just laughs about it while asking for help, it's like finding a unicorn that also does taxes. My buddy Steve proved this theory when he went on a date and tried to impress this woman by cooking dinner. This man somehow managed to burn spaghetti. Not the sauce, not the garlic bread, the actual noodles. Instead of getting embarrassed or making excuses, he just looked at the smoking pot and said, "Well, I guess we're having crunchy pasta tonight." She still brings up that story 2 years later as the moment she knew she wanted to keep him around. The key here is that your incompetence has to be in areas that don't actually matter. Nobody thinks it's cute when you can't hold down a job or remember to pay rent. But being completely baffled by self-checkout machines while maintaining a sense of humor about it, that's apparently catnip for the female brain. Number 2. Having zero chill about random hobbies. Here's something that'll blow your mind. Women are incredibly attracted to men who become completely obsessed with the most random, non-threatening hobbies you can imagine. I'm talking about the guy who knows everything about vintage bottle caps, or the man who can spend 4 hours discussing the aerodynamics of paper airplanes. I watched this play out with my neighbor Gary, who collects antique doorknobs. Yes, doorknobs. This man has an entire room dedicated to door hardware from the 1800s and can tell you the manufacturing history of any knob you show him. Sounds like the most boring thing on planet Earth, right? Wrong. Gary has women calling him constantly because they're fascinated by someone who gets that excited about something so completely random. The psychology here is actually pretty clever. When a woman sees a man who's genuinely passionate about something that has nothing to do with impressing other people or making money, it shows depth and the kind of focused attention they want directed at them eventually. Plus, it's completely non-threatening. She doesn't have to worry about competing with other women or his career ambitions because she's competing with doorknobs. Most guys think they need to have cool hobbies like rock climbing or motorcycle racing to be interesting. But there's something incredibly attractive about a man who gets genuinely excited explaining why 1920s door hardware was superior to modern manufacturing. It shows you're capable of deep focus and passion, which are way more attractive than fake coolness. The secret sauce is that your obsession has to be completely genuine. Women can smell fake interests from 3 counties away, but real enthusiasm for something totally weird. That's like relationship gold. One woman told me she fell for a guy specifically because he spent 20 minutes explaining why certain types of moss are superior to others for terrarium building. 20 minutes about moss, and she was hooked. Number 3. Accidentally acting like her bodyguard. Women go absolutely crazy for men who are protective in the most subtle, unconscious ways possible. I'm not talking about the obvious caveman stuff like flexing at other guys or making a big show of walking her to her car. I mean the guy who automatically moves her away from traffic without thinking about it or switches sides of the sidewalk so she's not walking next to the construction site. This trait is psychological dynamite because it shows you're naturally aware of her safety and comfort without needing a medal for it. It's the difference between a guy who constantly asks, "Are you okay?" every 5 minutes versus someone who just naturally notices when she's uncomfortable and fixes it without making a federal case about it. My friend Marcus figured this out completely by accident when he was walking with a woman and noticed she kept squinting in the sun. Without even thinking about it, he moved to the sunny side so she was walking in his shadow. She didn't even realize what happened until later, but she told me that moment made her feel more protected than any grand gesture ever had. The magic is that your protectiveness has to feel completely automatic. When you're constantly monitoring her comfort level out loud, it comes across as needy rather than protective. But when you naturally handle potential problems before she even notices them, that triggers something primal that makes her brain go, "Yes, this one, keep this one." Women spend most of their lives being hyper-aware of their surroundings and potential threats. So when they encounter a man who naturally handles that stuff without being asked or expecting praise for it, they can actually relax for once. And relaxed women are attracted women. Number 4. Having one area of your life that's complete chaos. This is going to sound completely backwards, but women find it incredibly sexy when you have most of your life together except for one specific area that looks like a tornado hit a hobby store. I'm talking about the accountant whose apartment is spotless except for his closet, which looks like clothing exploded. Or the lawyer who's incredibly organized at work, but his car interior resembles a mobile garbage disposal. The psychology behind this is actually brilliant. Perfect control in every single area of life makes women nervous because it feels unsustainable and slightly robotic. But controlled chaos in one specific zone shows you're human and you prioritize what actually matters. I know this guy Brian who's a financial planner, so his entire professional existence revolves around order and precision. But his garage looks like Home Depot threw up in there. Tools everywhere, half-finished projects covering every surface, and organizational systems that would make a hoarder weep. Women find this combination absolutely irresistible because it shows he's responsible where it counts, but still has creative passion that can't be contained. The trick is that your chaos has to be in an area that doesn't negatively impact other people. Having a messy bedroom when you invite someone over isn't controlled chaos, it's just being inconsiderate. But having a workshop or hobby space that looks like creativity had a seizure in there, that tells a story about passion and priorities that women eat up with a spoon. This works because it gives women permission to be imperfect too. If you can maintain professional success while having one area where you let your freak flag fly completely, it suggests you won't judge her for having similar contradictions in her own life. Number 5. Talking about feelings like a weather reporter. Here's the trait that absolutely destroys women once they encounter it. Men who can recognize and discuss emotions without turning into either a robot or a soap opera character. I'm talking about the guy who can say something like, "I'm feeling frustrated right now, but it's not about you," or "I'm excited about this, but also nervous it might not work out." Most men either bottle up emotions completely until they explode like a shaken soda can, or they dump every feeling on everyone around them like an emotional garbage truck. But the man who can observe his own emotional state like he's giving a weather forecast, that's rarer than a parking spot at the mall during Christmas shopping season. My buddy Ryan stumbled into this after his divorce when he started therapy. He began noticing and naming his emotions as they happened, not to be all touchy-feely, but just to understand what was happening in his own head. Women started gravitating toward him like he was giving away free wine because they'd never met a man who could say, "I'm feeling defensive right now, so let me take a second before I respond." This isn't about becoming an emotional oversharer or turning into the feelings police. It's about having enough self-awareness to recognize what you're experiencing and enough confidence to acknowledge it without making it everyone else's emergency. Women find this incredibly attractive because most of their dating experience involves playing emotional detective, trying to figure out why men are acting weird without any helpful clues. When they meet a guy who can actually communicate what's happening in his head, it's like finding someone who speaks their language fluently. The real magic happens when you can acknowledge difficult emotions without being controlled by them. Saying something like, "I'm disappointed this didn't work out, but I'm curious to try something different," shows emotional intelligence and resilience. The guys who try to fake these behaviors always get busted because women have built-in authenticity detectors that would make airport security jealous. You can't manufacture strategic incompetence or create fate-controlled chaos. These traits only work when they come naturally from someone who's genuinely comfortable being imperfect. So instead of trying to master these specific techniques, like their pickup artist moves, focus on becoming the kind of person who naturally embodies them. Develop real interests that matter more to you than being constantly available. Practice acknowledging your emotions without being hijacked by them. Allow yourself to be terrible at harmless things while maintaining standards where it actually counts. The most attractive thing about all these weird traits is that they signal a man who's not performing for anyone else's approval. He's just being himself, flaws and all, while taking responsibility for the stuff that actually matters. And somehow, that combination of self-acceptance and genuine growth turns out to be more irresistible than six-pack abs and a sports car combined. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more such videos. Thanks for watching.